There are many ways to enjoy Severance, Ben Stiller's new show. You can see it as a dystopian sci-fi about a corporation that uses technology to exploit people. You could take it as an office comedy about employees doing their best to navigate a deeply weird workplace, and it is absolutely hilarious a lot of the time. You could watch it for the philosophical questions it raises about what it means to be a human and have human rights. Or you can, of course, watch it for the sheer mastery of the acting performances, the cinematography, and the immaculate retro office aesthetic. Personally, for me, I find I enjoy Severance the most when I lean into the funny side of it. But given my professional background, there is one more aspect of the show that really speaks to me. For over 20 years, I have been an international expert on happiness at work. I have closely followed the research on what makes people happy or miserable at work and given talks in over 50 countries to help build better workplaces. So when I first heard about the premise behind Severance, I obviously had to watch it. And when I did, I was amazed at how astutely and accurately the show manages to expose and criticize many of the problems we see in workplaces today. Now, the show is American, so some of these criticisms apply particularly to US workplaces, but given that workplaces all over the world for some reason keep copying the culture and management style of US companies, its critique will resonate with workers all over the world. I will not be giving any spoilers for the show in this video, but if you haven't watched it yet, here's the main concept. A company called Lumen has invented a severance chip that people can get implanted in their brain to split their mind into two separate sets of memories and experiences. One exists only at work and is called the innie. The other lives the rest of their life and is called the outie. The outie drives to the Lumen HQ in the morning, puts anything that might identify who they are in a locker, and then gets in the elevator to go down to the severed floor. Their next memory is of being back in the elevator 8-something hours later. The entire workday has passed, but they have no memory of it. They have no idea what they do at work or who they work with. Why would anyone choose to work like this? Some outies choose to get severed because it's the only job they can get. Others do it to make a paycheck without having to experience the drudgery of work. In fact, that's exactly how the creator of the show got the idea for it.
I wrote the pilot while I was working a series of temp jobs, and I sort of caught myself having this fantasy, you could say, where I was like, man, I wish that if there were some way that I could just skip over the next 8 hours of my life and just immediately it's 5 p.m. and I can go home. Like I would 100% do that. And just realize like that's a kind of scary thing to catch yourself wanting, less precious time on this earth.
The innies, on the other hand, step out of the elevator in the morning, work for 8 hours, get back on the elevator in the afternoon, and their next experience is stepping out of that elevator again at the beginning of the next workday. They exist only at work and know nothing about the outside world. They don't even know what US state they're in or who the current president is, the lucky bastards. So while this is a fascinating sci-fi concept, it could very easily have been just another intriguing what-if thought exercise with little to no relevance to real life. But because the show is set in a workplace that very accurately parodies and criticizes the worst aspects of workplaces today, the show somehow still ends up feeling very grounded and relevant. And Severance absolutely nails many of the things we know and hate about our workplaces. So here are my top 10 ways that Severance perfectly skewers the worst parts of what it's like to work in many offices, and how Severance actually also inadvertently reveals one highly positive thing about work. The show follows 4 severed Lumen employees who work in macro data refinement. What is macro data refinement? They honestly have no clue.
Work is bullshit.
The work is mysterious and important. And we deal with the uncertainty it brings us in the way that Kier would have wanted. Together.
They're sorting numbers into boxes based on how those numbers feel, but what do those numbers represent? What does sorting them do? What happens if they sort them wrong? The employees don't know. They've been told it's important and that they should take it very seriously, but they're never told why, which means it's on them to find the energy and motivation to work hard on a completely meaningless task. While the MDR employees don't know why they're doing the work, they know what to do. They can see how many percent complete their project is and are constantly pressured to reach their performance goals. That should sound familiar to any worker who has KPIs or targets or productivity goals. And the exact same thing happens in the real world too. Many office workers have tasks at work that they have to do over and over without having any idea why. Why am I writing this report every week? Who reads it? What do they do with the results? What will happen if I get something wrong? And this is not good because we human beings have a strong desire to feel like we make a difference. According to research, knowing that your efforts make a difference is one of the most powerful motivators, more effective than rewards or promotions. So when you go to work every day to do work that has no sense of purpose for you, it creates a sense of meaninglessness that can be incredibly stressful. There's an idea in many workplaces that when you come to work, you should leave your personal life at home. You should not share your hobbies, your personal interests, your family situation, or your emotions with anyone at work. There's pressure on workers to dress a certain way at work, talk a certain way, act a certain way, and maybe even think differently than they do outside of work. It's almost like they want you to come to work as a different person, and Severance is the ultimate realization of that idea. The innies are different and separate from their outies. They won't ever bring any of their personal lives to work. They can't because they have no memories at all from outside the office. The absolutely brilliant movie Sorry to Bother You explores a similar theme where black call center employees are told to develop and use a white voice in order to not scare off the white customers they talk to on the phone.
You want to make some money here? Then read the script with a white voice.
Hey, Mr. Kramer, this is Langston from Regal View. I didn't catch you at the wrong time, did I?
Just to be clear, forcing employees to develop and act out a separate work persona is bad for them. The American sociologist Arlie Hochschild explores this in her book The Managed Heart and found that having to fake emotions and beliefs creates a constant level of stress that wears people down over time. Lumen does exactly that. The Lumen Compliance Handbook, their personnel handbook, explicitly lays out how workers should think, act, and even feel. But here's the problem. If you're not allowed to be yourself at work, you can't build real relationships with any of your coworkers because you're all pretending to be someone you're not. Every interaction is between fake corporate personas and not between real people, and these interactions will tend to feel superficial or fake. If you're conspiratorial at all, that might even be part of the plan. Keep workers isolated and separate, and they won't band together to demand better working conditions. And of course, we know from the research that employees with poor interpersonal relationships at work experience more stress than those with good relationships. Have you noticed that all of the severed employees are called by their first names only, while the managers get honorifics like Mr. Milchick or Ms. Cobell?
Hi, Mark.
Mr. Milchick.
Even the intern in season 2 goes by Ms. Wong, even though she is decades younger than the MDR employees. This is just one of the ways that Severance nails the typical power dynamics in the workplace and constantly demonstrates that Lumen's severed employees are at the bottom of a hierarchy that they are not allowed to question or defy. Another way is dress codes. Irv, Dylan, and Mark have to wear suit jackets while Mr. Milchick gets to dress more casual. And that's just one more way for Lumen to show them that they are not free to act how they want. It has to be said, however, that it doesn't matter what Mr. Milchick wears, he wears the hell out of it. The Dutch researcher Gert Hofstede has studied culture in different countries around the world and found that some cultures naturally accept that some people have power over others. It's just seen as the natural way of things, while other countries do not. For instance, Denmark, my home country, has the lowest power distance in the world with a score of only 18 out of 100. The US ranks somewhere in the middle with a score in the 40s. But given that the severed employees have no knowledge of the outside world, Lumen has essentially created its own culture where the hierarchy is very strictly enforced and may not be questioned, just like many real workplaces do. The most powerful way that the hierarchy is enforced at Lumen is, of course, with threats of punishment. Employees who stand up for themselves can get demoted or sent to the break room, which has a very different meaning at Lumen. More on that later. None of this is stated explicitly, just like in many companies. There is a lot of talk about Lumen being a community, maybe even a family. But the truth is that the power imbalance is there. The fact that it is not explicitly stated just makes it even more insidious. And just like in real workplaces, this can lead to employees policing each other.
Mark, sorry to interrupt. I know you're training Heli. I just noticed you removed the group photos from the desks.
Yeah, we're gonna take the new ones at Helly's party today.
Oh.
Okay, this is the Sienna file. Just poke around first, use the arrows.
I do think the old photos are supposed to stay on the desk until the new ones come in.
The rules may be meaningless and arbitrary, but workers can still end up helping to enforce those rules, either by stopping coworkers from breaking them or by ratting them out to management. That way, employees end up working against each other, either because they want to curry favor with management or simply out of a fear that someone else breaking the rules might lead to them also being punished. The ultimate sword of Damocles hanging over the head of any Lumen employee who misbehaves is, of course, the threat of being fired. That's the same in real workplaces. The worst punishment a boss can hand out to an employee is to let them go. And in Severance, this threat carries extra weight because firing a severed employee is the same as killing them, essentially. Their consciousness only exists when they're at work at Lumen, so losing their job is a literal death sentence. This gives an entirely new meaning to the phrase terminating an employee.
It will be as if you never even existed nor drew a single breath upon this earth.
That is, of course, extreme, but it is also a powerful commentary on real workplaces because firing an employee in the real world can also have serious consequences. We know from many, many studies that losing your job can hurt your financial status, your career prospects, your physical and mental health, and your family. There are also social consequences to losing your job. A lot of a person's self-worth and identity can depend on their job, and for many, losing a job can damage their social status. It gets especially bad in America, where losing your job can also mean losing your health insurance, which could lead to bankruptcy or ultimately, yes, death. And this doesn't only go for employees who are fired, but also for employees who quit voluntarily. If a Lumen severed employee chooses to quit to protest against mistreatment, they are, for all intents and purposes, committing suicide. When they get into that elevator on their last workday, they will cease to exist. When quitting is this hard, companies are much more free to treat employees badly, and that mirrors exactly what happens in real life. I made a whole video about quitting your job, and one of the points I make is that there is massive social and financial pressure on workers who hate their jobs to just suck it up and keep working. One of the funniest things on the severed floor is the perks they can earn for good performance.
I've got it 96% sorted, which means I've earned 4 of the 5 tier incentives, including the erasers and the finger traps that you see displayed here. 100% is tier 5. That gets you a caricature portrait. You'll note I've accrued an embarrassment of wealth in that regard.
Wow.
Correct.
All of which, of course, comes with a Lumen logo on it. This perfectly skewers the massive corporate urge to slap their logo on everything from mouse mats to coffee mugs. High-performing and compliant Lumen employees can also earn experiences like a waffle party, a melon bar, or the iconic music dance experience that gives one lucky employee a chance to choose an instrument and a music genre they'd like to dance to from amazing options like body funk, effusive ska, reckless disco, or wholesome big band.
By reaching 75% refinement on Sienna you have earned for you and your fellow refiners a 5-minute music dance experience. You may choose one genre and one accessory.
I choose Defiant Jazz.
None of this is too different from all of the corporate tchotchkes that many workplaces offer as carrots for good performance or compliant behavior. There are entire companies whose business is helping workplaces give their employees points that they can redeem for stuff or experiences. And just to be clear, this is a bad thing. The American sociologist Alfie Kohn says this:
all of these meaningless rewards demotivate us and trivialize our efforts at work.
The most hilarious example I've seen was from an Amazon warehouse where management gave their hardworking employees a pathetic candy gift bag with individually wrapped candies. This obviously backfired and made employees feel angry and unappreciated. Another way rewards can backfire at work is by creating internal competition and jealousy.
If we hit our numbers by quarter's end, one of us gets named Refiner of the Quarter, and that shit gets you a waffle party. I'm a deadlock for that this quarter, so don't get your hopes up.
The rewards themselves may be completely meaningless, but employees still end up competing for them and getting jealous when others get something they wanted. If a Lumen employee seems stressed or unhappy, they might get offered a session with the wellness specialist, Ms. Casey. There's that honorific again. They go to a room with green plants, dim lights, soothing music, and fake birdsong, designed to help them relax, while Ms. Casey then leads them through a kind of guided meditation where she lists facts about their Audi.
Your Audi values water. A photo of your Audi with a trophy was once in a newspaper. Your Audi is skilled at kissing and lovemaking.
I think it's worth noting that this session is not meant to fix any of their problems at work. It's just meant to distract them and make them feel better about their situation in that moment. And real-life workplaces do kind of the same thing. When employees are burning out because of high workloads, meaningless tasks, job stress, a toxic culture, or mistreatment by managers, companies often react by trying to fix the employees with things like yoga classes, wellness programs, stress management trainings, or in-office fitness classes. If you wanted to put a positive spin on this kind of thing, you could see it as a way to boost employees' resources and resilience. But that really does beg the question: wouldn't it be better to run our workplaces in such a way that we don't continually deplete employees' resources to the point where we have to restore them? And even more importantly, it doesn't work. A huge British study from 2024 proved that none of this works. It examined the effect of things like yoga classes or stress management trainings on employee happiness and concluded they do not make employees any happier. In fact, some of them made things a little worse. Every workplace has its own language and phrases. For instance, corporations love TLAs. For those of you not in the know, a TLA is a 3-letter acronym. And I've seen so many examples of corporations making their own acronyms and terms for things and processes inside the organization. It's a central part of the induction of new employees into any workplace. You have to learn to speak this inside language. Lumen is no different. For instance, macro data refinement is usually shortened to just MDR. And employees don't get sent on team buildings. They have an ORTBO. That's an outdoor retreat and team building occurrence. That is just spot on. The single cringiest perk given to a Lumen employee is when Mr. Milchick, who is not severed and so is aware of what's going on in US society, is given a set of paintings of the company's founder, Keir Egan, where Egan is painted to look black like Mr. Milchick himself. This is just incredibly tone deaf, but of course he can't come out and say that directly.
Oh my, I'm grateful.
Yes.
It's meaningful to see myself reflected in
Lumen employees, even the managers, are supposed to remain courteous, professional, and positive at all times. Have you ever heard the phrase, we don't have problems, we have challenges? That is just one of the many ways that many workplaces discourage negative language. And again, this is a tool for control. If employees are discouraged from speaking negatively about anything, it makes it a lot harder for them to go against any management directives that they disagree with. My favorite pun in Severance is the break room. In a regular workplace, that would be the place you go to take a break, but on the Lumen Severed floor, it's where a manager breaks misbehaving employees by having them read an apology again and again and again until the manager is satisfied that they actually mean it.
Forgive me for the harm I've caused this world. I really am sorry, okay?
How many times?
1072.
And the same thing kind of can happen in real life workplaces. You as an employee may feel like you're being mistreated or that the company operates in ways that just don't make sense to you. But if you hear often enough from managers that no, actually, you are the problem, everything makes perfect sense, you just can't see it, you may end up believing it. Especially if this gaslighting is combined with the toxic positivity you looked at earlier, that makes it nearly impossible to voice any disagreement or point out any problems. No information from the outside world is ever allowed to reach the severed floor, but by accident, a self-help book called The You Are ends up with the innies who keep it and read it instead of handing it into Mr. Milchick as they should. This book, like 99% of all self-help books, is just chock full of the most vapid, pseudo-profound platitudes. Allow me to illustrate.
Bullies are nothing but bull and lies. At the center of industry is dust. They cannot crucify you if your hand is in a fist. Our job is to taste free air. Your so-called boss may own the clock that taunts you from the wall, but my friends, the hour is yours.
You and I can recognize this as nonsense, but the innies who read it find it inspiring and profound, maybe because they are in an innocent, receptive state of mind, having never been exposed to similar manipulative nonsense before. So what does Lumen do once they discover that the innies have access to this book? They don't ban the message, they co-opt it. They hire the author to write a new version of the book specifically for severed employees and tell the author exactly how to change it so the book does not inspire any resistance among the severed employees. And this is exactly what happens with real-life motivational gurus. A company that treats its workers poorly and therefore sees them being demotivated and burned out will often bring in a motivational speaker to fire them up. But I guarantee you that they will carefully select motivational gurus whose entire message is that if you're demotivated and burned out, the answer is to work on yourself, never to challenge the system. That is why the Tony Robbinses of the world are always on about looking within yourself and unlocking your own potential. If you are not happy and productive in your workplace, don't question the workplace culture or expect the workplace to change. Always make sure to change yourself to fit into that workplace. You might be forgiven for thinking that Severance has nothing positive to say about work, but as critical as it is about modern workplaces, there is one positive it can't deny: the power of workplace relationships. The innies' entire world is the workplace, and they're spending nearly all of their lives with their coworkers. And even though these people are wildly different and stuck in a toxic workplace, they still end up forming deep, meaningful interpersonal bonds that mean that they are willing to help each other, support each other, and even make personal sacrifices for each other when needed. We know from a ton of research that good workplace relationships are absolutely essential for our happiness at work. If we don't like and respect the people we work with, and we feel they don't like and respect us, we are much more prone to workplace stress and burnout.
Your Audi never forgets to click like and subscribe on a video they enjoyed.
I just want to be clear. I still think Severance is dystopian satire, not a real reflection of what most workplaces are like today. I don't think all workplaces suck or that work must inherently be a bad experience. In the course of my work, I have gotten to know of so many great workplaces that treat their employees well and overall make the world a little better. You can find them in every country and in every sector, every industry. But no workplace is perfect. Even the best workplaces have their little picadillos and problems. And yes, bad workplaces absolutely also exist. You know, workplaces with high workloads, meaningless tasks, toxic culture, and bad bosses. What makes Severance so awesome is that it uses a high concept sci-fi idea to offer a stunningly accurate critique of the worst sides of our workplaces, a critique that might even help us acknowledge those issues and create better, more human-friendly workplaces. That's one thing that makes Severance awesome, and the other one is, of course, Mr. Milchick's outfits. Stay happy.